Hello everyone and welcome back to the Find Your Peak podcast where fitness meets real life. I'm your host Megan Morensky and today we're going to be talking about something that many clients run into at some point and most of you probably be able to relate to, and that is travel. I am recording this episode in Scotland. I'm here for 2 weeks visiting family and of course I had to travel to get here. I had to get on a plane, long plane ride, I think it was about 8-9 hours, and then another one up to my home city. So lots of travel, overnight, all that good stuff. So lack of sleep, you dealing with jet lag, and also trying to manage nutrition. So it totally is out of routine. So how do we manage this to make sure that we don't totally regress, or how do we set ourselves up where traveling, obviously it's a part of our lifestyle, but how do we fit it in with our goals? Because especially for long travel times, it can put a large strain on us. It's totally out of routine. It can put a large strain on our bodies. So how do we manage this so we can stay on track? So I'm going to give you some tips whether you're flying for work, you're headed out on holiday, or you're just going on a weekend trip. But staying on track doesn't have to be so complicated. So today I'm going to give you my top tips for staying on track. That includes how you can eat high in protein, how you can regulate your sleep so you can get back on a really good sleep schedule ASAP, how to even maximize movement when you're traveling, and also managing recovery. One of the main mistakes that I made is I tried to control it too much. So I used to almost like prepare so much for traveling, and it added stress onto my body, plus the added stress of travel. So one of my main tips is just accept it, do the things you can, and just, like I've always said, aim to progress. Don't aim for perfection, just aim to progress. Traveling is a skill, and it's also similar to eating out. I view this as like a skill acquisition. So the more you do it, the better you get at it. So don't expect to be perfect first time, but reflect on what goes on, what works well, what doesn't, and just keep getting better and better and better. Traveling is likely part of your lifestyle at one point. Everyone does it. So making sure that you can learn from each travel or each time you eat out and just keep developing that skill. Just like in the gym, it's a muscle you've got to flex, okay? Okay, so first things first, let's dive into the nutrition side. So typically, it's very easy to eat high carb or high fat when we're traveling. So how do we get protein? How do we get a high protein diet or stick to our high protein diets when we're traveling? This is the first thing that we'll usually drop out of our routine. Like I said, if you go to an airport to get high protein, you've got to be, there's got to be thought behind it. Typically, it's very easy to grab fast food or burgers, whatever it is. So one of the first things I recommend to do is pack items. Pack some good snacks, high protein snacks that you can get through customs, or get through security, and that are non-perishable, that you don't have to store in a fridge. Things like protein bars. You can buy even single serve whey protein packets. What I do is I actually put a scoop of whey protein powder in my shake, and I keep that in my bag, and when I want it I just fill it up with water. Things like beef jerky. I'm not a huge beef jerky fan, but it is very high in protein. Tuna packets, again, I'm not a huge fan of these, but they are very beneficial. Just be mindful of the smell. So be mindful of that. Like I said, protein bars are really good. However, I advise not having protein bars for like every single meal. They are processed foods. There's a lot of fillers in them. So maybe having one, possibly two, depending on your journey. Also, Fairlife shakes, they've been getting a lot of attention recently and they are good. I'm not a huge milk person, so these don't taste that great to me, but they are very, very good. You can buy them in most airports or most stores within the airport. Things like the Core Power, which I believe have 42 grams of protein in them. But any type of protein shake, just make sure you check the actual macros in them because these can be loaded with carbs and sugar. So all of these things are easy to pack. You can, even if you're road tripping, you can pack them. If you're going on a flight, you can take them through customs or take them through security. So making sure that you have these available. These are just good to kind of curb your hunger and making sure you're getting enough protein in your diet while you're traveling. The next tip I want to move on to is actually what we do before we travel. So I'm going to use the example of me flying from from the States to Scotland. So I had an overnight flight. My flight was leaving at 6:30 and I was landing in the UK at like 7:30 a.m. the following morning, local time. So about 7-8 hours on the flight. What I did leading up to that, I actually started that morning. So I made sure I protein fasted the entire day. So my breakfast, my lunch, and then a snack before I left the airport was all very high in protein, low in fat, low in carbs. And then when I got to the airport, before I got on my flight, I got a meal that had a good protein source. I had chicken in it. I also had some carbs. I had rice, and it was a Mexican burrito bowl. So rice, veggies, chicken, and that was it. I'm not saying there's anything against the airplane food. However, for me personally, I do not particularly like it. I would rather spend the $15, $16 on a meal that I know is nutritional and I enjoy it more. Plain food, the quality is pretty poor, and also the actual food you get is not the best in terms of macro makeup. So if you do have plain food, just factor that in. It's probably going to be higher carb, higher fat. Depending on what your choices are, you may get a good protein source, but again, the quality of that protein isn't very good. So I do opt for paying the extra $15 to get a good meal before I fly. Now I was traveling overnight, so what I try to do is get my sleep schedule sorted straight away. So I get on that flight and I do not eat until we are close to landing the next day, which in my head is, 2 a.m., but local time that's 7 a.m. So I try to regulate my body as much as possible. So I fast for most of the flight, and then I may have a protein shake, or they actually took out some fresh fruit and a little pot of Chobani Greek yogurt, so I had that. But I do try to get my eating schedule aligned with the time zone that I'm entering. So I was entering UK time, so it was coming up for breakfast time. But bearing in mind that my hunger signals are all out of whack, so I may feel hungry at weird times. I wasn't actually particularly hungry. I managed to sleep a decent amount of the flight, which was really good. But if you can make sure that you are getting a decent amount of protein before you travel, like I said, protein fasting is a great tool. I've touched on this before. If you've got any question on this, just feel free to message me or reach out and I can describe it to you. But protein fasting is such a good tool. So it is like having most of your protein like when you can, and then saving your carbs and fats till later on, and making sure that you are getting on a good sleep schedule. So try align your body with the time zone you're entering is a really, really good tip. Okay, the last thing about nutrition, if you do decide to eat out when you're traveling with your road trip and you're stopping somewhere, or if you're in an airport and you know what restaurants are in that airport, which you can just Google, is looking up the menus before you go. This will give you a great idea of what options you have when you go to this place, when you stop at this restaurant or you go to this place in the airport. Almost every restaurant now has at least one high protein option, so looking for things like grilled chicken, steak, salmon, shrimp, any type of lean burgers, like a turkey burger is really good. But if you go in with a plan, you won't get stuck with pasta and fries, okay, which is all carbs, by the way. So making sure that you look up menus beforehand, and you can even plan, if you're tracking, you can actually pre-log this, okay. And this is something I try to do as much as I can. Like I said, when I was traveling this time and I knew I was going to have that meal in the airport, I tracked everything that I ate before that and also accounted for that meal I was going to have. So again, I was estimating. I did not know how much rice I was going to get, so I just estimated. I looked up the menu, looked up the nutritional values, and just kind of estimated from there. It's never going to be perfect, but I put it in there and I left it, and that was it. The next tip I've got, and this is something I've already just touched on, is regulating your sleep on the go. So when we travel, it absolutely crushes our sleep. Time zones get in the way, late nights, you're in weird beds. So just like anything, the goal isn't perfection, it's just consistency. So here's a few things that can help. Keep your sleep and wake time as close to normal as possible. Our bodies love rhythm, and when we get out of rhythm, it has like a knock-on effect. So if you're flying overnight and you don't manage to sleep on that plane, your hunger signals are going to be all out of whack the next day. So making sure that we can get into a good routine and just do what we can does help. So making sure you can regulate your body as quick as possible. And like I said, aligning your meal times with the times when you're entering does help with this. So keep your body in a good, steady rhythm. The next thing is get sunlight as soon as you land. This will help with the rhythm. This anchors your circadian rhythm and helps your body adjust faster. I know it can be quite difficult if you're going from plane to plane, if you've got a couple of connecting flights. It's kind of like what I did. And it's amazing, like, I almost feel, well, I know I am deprived of fresh air, because as soon as I get out that airport at my final destination, oh, it feels so good. Even if it's pelting, I'm getting pelted with rain and I'm getting blown away and the smell of cow poo, it's the best thing ever. I feel like you just feel gross after travelling. You know, you're in a stuffy airplane and then you're in an airport and then you're back on another plane. So that breath of fresh air it just hits different. So there's not much sunlight in Scotland, but just getting fresh air does really, really help. Like I said, it anchors your circadian rhythm. The next thing is keep your nighttime routine simple. So don't overcomplicate things. There's all this, jargon out there about getting like red light therapy or whatever it is. But just keep it simple. If you can get the fundamentals right, then you can assess certain other areas if you need to. But making sure you're sleeping in a dimly lit room, limit screen time before you go to bed, maybe even take a warm shower before you go to bed. But don't build a 12-step sleep routine. Just hit the basics and tell your brain it's time to wind down. Apologies in the background, that was a helicopter going by. I'm in a very, very noisy area. Okay, I had to pause it for a second just while that helicopter went by. So the next thing we're going to cover is recovery. So typically when we travel, we're sitting down a lot. It's very easy to get dehydrated and also store a lot of inflammation depending on the food we eat. So recovery matters more on the road than it does at home. Like I said, you're out of routine, and it does put stress on the body. So here's what I want you to focus on. The first thing is hydration. Especially if you're flying, we get extremely dehydrated. So make sure you have water with you. Make sure you're refilling it, keep it with you, and also drink plenty of fluids when you're on that flight. I do not care how much. You have a toilet right there, so there's no excuses. You literally get up, walk 20 steps, and you're in the bathroom. Even if it's not the most, glamorous thing, peeing on a plane, I get it. I don't particularly like it either. However, that is not a good enough excuse to not drink water. So make sure you're hydrating. Just a little story for you that will hopefully put things in perspective. We flew to Scotland last December. It was me and my husband coming back for our Scottish wedding celebration, and he usually drinks a lot of water. Like usually he's drinking more than me, but we were travelling and he didn't want to get up to pee. So I didn't realise that was his thought process going into it. So he had a couple of beers before the flight and he had a bottle of water before we got on, and that was about it. And we were close to landing in London, about an hour from landing, and all of a sudden he decides to pass out and he was totally just unconscious for a while. The scariest thing ever. And what happened was he was dehydrated. So he didn't drink for 7 hours after having those couple of beers, and just the elevation and being in the aircraft, he cramped somewhere like in his abdomen, and the cramp was a cause of the dehydration and he passed out. So that was not fun. So he will definitely be drinking water going forward, but even besides that, you shouldn't be able to get to that point. This is not me lecturing him if he is listening, which he probably is. I'm not lecturing you. But it's a good lesson to learn. These things, it's quite scary when it happens, but dehydration definitely has some extremely negative side effects. So making sure you're staying hydrated. I get it, if you're going on holiday, it is a time to relax and rejuvenate. So having alcohol as we travel isn't a bad thing. Just make sure you're drinking plenty of water in between. Staying on top of your hydration is so, so important, and it will help with your hunger as well. Like I said, when we travel, our hunger signals are out of whack. So making sure you stay on top of your hydration will help with that. The next thing is having light movement. So if you're in an airport, if you ever see me in an airport, I'm probably walking around getting my steps in. I get it, if you're in a car, it's hard to get steps in because you literally go into the car and you get out and that's it. You can stretch at a gas station, that helps with tightness, but making sure you're walking or doing some sort of movement before and after your journey. So get as much in as you can. Even doing some light mobility in the morning, like a 5-minute mobility routine before you get in that car or you get on that plane, is very, very beneficial. But airports, I get it, you're sitting on a flight for most of the time, so when you're in an airport, walk around. There's plenty to see, plenty to do, but just get your steps in, okay? Drink some water as you do this. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The next thing is workouts. So when it comes to traveling, whether you're planning on getting a workout in before or after, don't force perfect workouts. And what I mean by this is a few things. So if you are working out before you get on a plane, not a bad idea, but just know that your recovery from this workout may be impaired. If you're getting a workout in after you land, again, know your energy levels might not be optimal. If you're working out when you're traveling, so in a hotel gym, know that hotel gyms aren't always that great. They are way better than what they used to be, but they're still not going to be the perfect, ideal environment for you to get a good workout in, but you can still get a very, very good, effective workout in. Keep your intensity pretty moderate depending how you feel. If you're just traveling an hour, then that's not really going to impair you too much. But if you're in a car for 5-6 hours, then yes, expect this to impair your ability to work out and your performance. If you're traveling as in flying, then yes, this impairs it even more. So again, just aim for consistency, not perfection. Do what you can. Keep intensity moderate, trying to match your energy levels, okay? And like I said, just remember that showing up and doing something is always better than nothing. The last thing I want to elaborate a little bit more on is your steps and your movement. So kind of going off the workouts, I know I've mentioned steps already, but one of the easiest things to maintain while we travel is our step count, or just our light movement. Okay, so getting access to a gym can be a little bit more difficult. Like obviously there's no gyms in airports. Not yet anyway. I do believe that at one point there will be gyms in airports. But the easiest thing to maintain while we travel is our step count. Okay, and it does pay off. So I've already mentioned this, but walk the airport instead of just sitting at the gate for hours upon end. You can easily get at least 1,000 steps in. I usually try get 2 to 3 before I get on that flight. Usually I'm at the airport really, really early. I'm one of those people that I'd rather just get everything through security and then have time to kill rather than being rushing. So I usually get between 2,000 to 3,000 steps, and it's really, really easy. So make sure that you just move rather than just sit at the gate. The next thing, if you are traveling via car, like I said, so obviously you can't really walk in the car, but when you do stop, just trying to get some light movement in, so stretching. Wherever you are going on your trip, try to move as much as possible. So go out exploring, go on morning walks, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, parking further away. All these little things add up. I encourage people to do this regardless if they're on holiday or not. So making sure that you still just are getting movement in as much as possible. The next thing is anchor a daily minimum. So if you're someone that usually gets 10 to 12,000 steps a day, maybe on holiday you just bump that down to maybe 8. Which, it's weird, I actually find when I'm on holiday I walk way more. So usually if you're someone that goes on holiday and you usually just sit on your arse and do nothing and you just like to drink and booze, or drink and eat, then maybe up this. Maybe increase it where you are still getting at least your 10,000 steps. But if you're someone like me who usually walks way more when on holiday, then you don't need to worry about this. But making sure you still have a daily minimum that you're going to hit, okay? It takes the stress off and it also just keeps you accountable. But it's good just to get some good extra movement in. So having a floor keeps you accountable without stressing you out. The biggest takeaway from this episode is traveling doesn't have to throw you off your goals. If you just stick to the basics, so getting as much protein in as you can, sleep rhythm, your hydration and getting light movement in, you'll come home or you'll reach your destination feeling good and not like you've undone everything. Okay, I get it, like traveling, I am not a huge fan of traveling. I like getting to my destination, but I don't particularly enjoy the travel. But these are the main things that I always do when I travel. So if you can hit these will keep you aligned with your goals and also get your body feeling good and adjusted as soon as possible where you can get back to a good, healthy routine. So that's all I've got for today. This is a nice shorter episode for you guys, so thank you for listening. If this episode helped you, please share it with someone you're traveling with or post it on your story, post it on social media. As always, if you're interested in coaching, head to the Summit Coaching Instagram page, link below, and you can send me a message. There's also an application form you can fill out and we can get you started on your journey. With coaching, you work directly with myself. Everything is fully customized to get you reaching your goals. I always like to preach this, that what gets measured gets managed. So if you're not tracking things, if you're not looking at your goals and where you want to be and how you're going to get there, you're probably not going to get there anytime soon. So make sure you've got a plan in place. If you need help with that, please reach out. You will get 24/7 accountability and support from myself. And like I said, customized workout and nutrition plans. Everything is tailored to you. So please reach out and we can get you started on your fitness journey. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please give it a 5-star review, share it with your friends on social media. all that good stuff. It's amazing the feedback that I'm getting from people. I'm actually amazed that people like to listen to what I have to say, which is pretty cool. So if you have any other ideas, please reach out and I can get those in an episode for you. If you have any questions, please reach out. I'm always thankful and grateful to hear from you guys. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Make sure you subscribe. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys next week.